Alrighty, thanks a lot, and we are back, everybody. We had a little bit of technical difficulty as the alphabet boys are trying to figure out if they're going to be training the new guy or not. So we're going to go real quick. Gordon, why don't you finish up describing who you are, where you've been, so people get
Okay, I was saying my name is pronounced Gianninoto, and I don't have a website, and I'm not selling anything, but I'm a contactee and an artist and a photographer, and I'm like a walking encyclopedia, and I read a lot, and I've always been interested in what's going on in the world, and I taught myself telepathy and contacted extraterrestrials. A woman said, you should ask them to find you a partner, so I figured I'll make up a list and ask for that, and I did, and I met her, and we've been together 23 years. So I've been living this life where we've had ETs we've had saucers in the yard, we've had ETs in the yard, we've had ETs in the house, so I'm quite on familiar ground with these two individuals, Andrew and Christopher. And Chris, I was always writing articles and sending them out, and I just kept expanding my email list, and at some point Chris got on it, and I'm pretty sure it's because I read something that he had written that somebody sent me, and I thought, well, I've got to put this guy on my list so we can be in contact. So I was sending out articles, and then Chris invited me to be on his radio show, Cosmic Love, and up until that time I had been on 2 radio shows in Maine, and obviously nobody cared one way or the other about that. But when I was on Christopher Rudy's show, all hell broke loose, and Coast to Coast called me, and since then it's been
Heaven broke loose. Heaven broke loose. All heaven broke loose.
Yeah. So it's been more than 2 years, and I've been on 700 radio stations and spoken to millions of people in 2 years, and it seems like I do interviews regularly now. And so I had thought, there's a lot of subjects that I usually talk about, planet X and pole shift and the coming dimensional shift and learning to use your heart energy and making a conscious choice to organize all your intentions and your behavior around unselfishness. But I thought, this Galactic historian, Andrew, you can ask this guy anything. So I thought, why not make up a list of some of the ancient mysteries that have always really caught my imagination and I never could figure out. So I mentioned that yesterday, and wow. So hopefully we can recreate that conversation today. So whenever you're ready, Andrew, I could start asking you questions.
All right. Chris wanted to go ahead and do the lead off because some of this is going to be on Chris's archive for his show on Saturday. So, Chris, why don't you start off?
Yes, I'm going to be doing the show on Saturday live with Gordon. He's going to finish up the last half hour. The first half hour is going to be this conversation now with Andrew. And I'm like Gordon. It occurred to me that knowing Andrew's gifts and talents, knowing them intuitively, having worked with many people like Andrew on Cosmic Love who have extraordinary gifts and talents, and some of them in the most bizarre ways that you can imagine. Of course, that's what Cosmic Love is all about. We've all got these gifts and talents. And I recognize Andrew has extraordinary gift and talent that I can ask him just like Gordon was talking about. I can ask him about anything about cosmic law, and he can access those records in a way that is extremely unique and valuable for anyone that's really serious about conscious evolution. And personally, I can't think of anything better to do. So I was going to ask you, Andrew, and this is the kind of questions I'd really like to know. That I referenced the spring equinox shift report that I referenced earlier. I've referenced that my concern is, and my interest is, and my question is, at this time, we're talking about spring equinox 2013. In the larger scheme of things, as far as the cosmic cycles Earth is going through right now with galactic alignment, the 25,800-year precession of the equinox. Our solar system is crossing the ecliptic of the galactic plane, and we're amidst in alignment with, what do they say, 300 billion suns in our galaxy, or what is the correct number there?
It's not one galaxy, it's 3 galaxies. We're coming into alignment, 3 central suns. One central sun.
And the one central sun is ours?
Yep. Well, technically we're not in the Milky Way. We're in between it. We're in that quasi-in-between zone where the very edges of 3 different galaxies are intermingling. And it's unable for us to see it in the position that we're in because literally if you have 3 circles interacting, the very edge of that circle is a little half-moon shape. We're in the center, and we get stuck in an orbit where we can never get out of that center because our moon is acting as an anchor, locking us here in the galactic ascension machine that's our solar system. This
is my point, that the energetics right now are very unique, and they're surging. And there's a surge in the energetics of the Earth from this perspective. And that surge is accelerating, some call it spontaneous evolution of our DNA as a tuning fork for the energies not only of our physical bodies, but the energies of the universe. Like they used to think 90% of the brain was junk DNA. They're finding out, that it's not junk. It's just unused, and it's waking up. It's being spontaneous evolution. It's like a tuning fork for the energies of the galaxy, or these 3 galaxies, and the surge that's going on with these energetics. Some people refer to it as the thinning of the veil, this is my question along the lines that I have for this time, and we're talking about, spring equinox today. We're between, light and dark, and as the Earth's axis aligns, and the north hemisphere and the southern hemisphere are getting equal amounts of light on its axis, equal amounts of daylight. So the equal time, the equinox, this energy is a very unique, kind of a pause in the balance cycles, and it's known as a kind of a spur, but it's like a window or a portal to energies from a larger perspective that I understand are surging, and your perspective on that would be very much appreciated.
The surge that you're speaking of is coming from the 3 galaxy interaction on the edge of our solar system. Our solar system has an energetic bubble around it. That bubble is created by the sun. Inside the sun is a series of 3 soul groups of 7th dimensional beings that put this solar system together 58 million years ago. They assembled it planet by planet. The sun was actually brought here by an overmind soul group that was the original explorers that found the moon. The moon is the anchor point that brought 3 galaxies together. And this is the culmination of a 52 million year history that has a macro history, which is the galactic perspective, the micro history, which is the inside the galactic perspective, and then the macro to micro again, it's the humans and then the subhuman, and those that are in the inner earth. In the inner earth is our higher dimensional selves that have been living here in the quasi-existence of soul contracts above Earth and waiting for ourselves to learn various lessons so that we could return to Hollow Earth and explore the higher dimensional lessons of this galactic ascension machine of our solar system. Each planet in our system has an an outer world and an inner world, and some have several dozen inner worlds. Well, Earth has several thousand inner cities that relate to different species on different planets and different galaxies. And that's how the soul groups have met. The soul groups set up the actual astronomy and astrology that we have here, so that each soul group coming in has a star watching system that does not relate to technology, so their soul's natural imagery looking up to the skies can understand their astrology based off their solar system. At this point in time, the culmination of this 52 million year history is allowing all 3 soul groups from each galaxy, because you're based off of a galactic soul group now, that has allowed exchange of karma on a galactic scale to be effective on this planet. This planet is a galactic ascension machine tool. It's where you come and get your PhD in the School of Hard Knocks. And after you've been vetted, tested, done, printed, and smacked around in the School of Hard Knocks, you get to graduate. And the graduation process means you've gone through all the phases of light and dark, have accepted the 4 previous phases of destruction, and understand that all the soul groups that were there for a reason, to anchor this exact point in time down. Because every soul that has ever come here has decided that there is a base contract that if you incarnate here once, you want to reincarnate here in service to Earth one more time, which is this time right now, when we go from the point of the Dark Ages and the Iron Age back into the Golden Age. But you're here for one reason and one reason, to expand and understand your galactic DNA, and that all three galaxies can come together in unison and harmony and begin to express the karma that was meant from the galactic ascension machine. So the actual energy on Earth today is that of equality and balance and clearing out. For those that understand the purgative value of neutral energy, also understand the next day there is another purgative energy, and a purgative energy purge, I'd say purge. The next level is 20 days from now, 30 days from now, you'll be moving into the higher light. There will be more and more light in your system, and the more light you have, the more your original DNA from your home planet will begin to make itself irrelevant. I liken it to a chrysalis or a butterfly web that's around you, into the original caterpillar. That is what will be going to us as we move from the neutral state to the more lightened state. Does that answer your question?
You know, I have now grokked some repeating patterns from the shows we've had, and listening to your some of your previous recordings, which are just amazing. But I'm kind of, whether it's autistic or on a certain edge of the autism spectrum, I've always been kind of quirky and geeky like that. And one thing that I see with the common pattern frames of reference is it's one of the most brilliant things on cosmogenesis I've ever heard. Because the soul, the concept of the soul, and when I say cosmogenesis, the genesis of soul evolution through different spheres, different octaves, different energetics of planets, systems, galaxies, and this understanding from that perspective, the larger scheme of things, to me is fascinating. And believe me, I'm sure that's what listeners, I got phenomenal response to you when you were on the show this last time, by the way, Andrew. I haven't been tooting your horn that much, but I'm doing it now.
Thank you.
So the questions I've asked you before is kind of come around to the same point of the energetics that are going on now. Spring solstice, the surge in the field of the Earth is, for the northern hemisphere, as the days become longer from spring into summer. That's kind of self-evident. But the larger cosmic surge that's going on, there's a cycle within cycles within cycles, and that's one of the brilliant things I've learned about the Mayan calendar from people a lot smarter than myself. I've interviewed on Cosmic Love over the years, and I've learned, the cycles within cycles things and the harmonics, the different harmonics as far as conscious evolution and the levels and stages and the extraordinary sophistication of the evolution of consciousness of mankind, and changes on the planet by cycles. And the cycles, I understand now that we're kind of a midpoint between cycles. Now, you referenced this in another show, and that concept for listeners, the understanding of this midpoint, 3/22/2013, which is what, Friday, between 2009 2016. A cycle of acceleration in the field, the quantum field that we live in, here on Earth, because of this surge in the source field, you might call it, surge in the quantum field, the unified field, because of the merging of these three galaxies right now, and the unique situation that Earth's evolutions have right now. Could you comment on that?
Yes. These energies that are coming in also have a layer that people must be aware of. There's a sentience out there. There's thousands of species that have had history with Earth, long involved history, wars and peace, and the times where Earth was a refugee planet where it was the only light of the entire universe, and when darkness was winning, they all retreated to Earth. People don't know that part of the history for a reason. That's one of the reasons that what's going on now is being kept in some secret. But as we come closer to 3/22, as we understand, we reach the absolute neutral, and that's when the prime creator of the three galaxies, the three into one that decided to merge galactic minds, began to exchange karma, so that it is another layer where the prime neutral creator of all three galaxies, the merged hive mind of three galaxies, comes in and does the audit here on the planet.
So
it's the only time that it can, it's the only time it can take place.
So the audit's like a big life review.
Well, think of it as every crystalline structure on Earth that's in the ground will begin to vibrate at the prime neutral's vibratory neutral energy. It's like a massive tuning fork. The inner Earth and the hollow Earth is a giant spherical tuning fork.
This is one thing that I've noticed in your different shows, Andrew. Those who've listened to a few of your shows realize there's a repeating pattern, common pattern, or common sense in what you're saying. It becomes kind of self-evident after a while. And this is one thing that really amazes to me, that there's concepts that you reference that combined, you might say, and again, it's like spaced repetition for me. Hearing the patterns and connecting the dots. And I'm the kind of guy that will actually, when I'm listening to a lecture, I will stop it, and one that's that I can do instant replay. I'll go back and forth, and I will take out the word patterns and the concepts. And of course, I'm very left-brained and pictorial, so I get word pictures or images of it. And basically, it's like to get the big picture, in the 1,000 pictures within, each one worth 10,000 words. The cosmogenesis concepts that you bring forth with soul evolution, if nothing else, what it does, it opens the concept of the order of the universe with soul evolution, the conscious evolution process itself, because as we become conscious of our conscious, there's a feedback loop, and it's for self-correction. It's like E equals MC squared. C is the symbol for light, but C is also the symbol for conscience. And as you become conscious of how you are conscious, the language of consciousness, the light of consciousness, the operating system for the holodeck, that what happens is it goes exponential. Beyond the speed of light. I mean, it's like E equals MC squared. All time and space becomes relative. It's like, then capabilities of effective sensory perception or enlightened sensory perception. It's not ESP like extrasensory perception, because when you've got it, there's nothing extra about it. And again, when I'm, it's like anyone else. When you're hot. When you're not, you're not. But there's like the mirror image of stupid does as conscience does. It's is the cup half empty or half full? So I'm taken off with that spring equinox shift spirit. The happy spring equinox energy and having a little fun. But I do want to ask you, Andrew, along these lines. A frame of reference for what's going on with the collective consciousness now, your perspective in terms of this shifting towards a pattern recognition in the collective consciousness with the social consciousness and social networks. The computer internet revolution has kind of got to the point of, it's beginning to connect and you might say fulfill, I believe it's divine destiny, is a gateway or a portal from the internet to the inner net, basically the field, the quantum field. So, quantum computing, anyone that's really connects to the quantum field through any computer, is doing quantum computing. And what's happening is the veil thins. This concept, this understanding of the quantum field, and really the veil thing is a function of people are, when I say waking up, the spontaneous evolution that's going on in their DNA and in their holodeck, the unused parts of the brains that are basically waking up, they're being triggered, and there's a light, a cosmic light from the field that is, and there's the intersect of these three galaxies, and the interesting aspects of this energetic field that at this cosmic time in cosmic history This is a very unique time for a spontaneous evolution, revolution in higher consciousness, waking up, however you want to reference it. That's the type of references, by the way, I go into the article, the Spring Equinox Shift Report, that I gave the coordinates for earlier. Were those coordinates recorded? Was that section of the program recorded, by the way?
I think that part was the AJ thing cut off, but we'll put it back in here. Why don't you just go ahead and name it and say it now?
Pardon? Oh, yeah, the other question?
Yeah.
And your frame of reference on this process in the quantum field right now would, again, really be appreciated.
It started on December 21st. I'll paint a broad stroke so people have a visual concept as well as a vocal concept. On the 21st, I want you to just imagine our Earth from in space. You see a planet with an atmosphere and a globe around it. And imagine the upper and lower atmospheres of the hemispheres begin to light up with an energy, and that energy creates a sparking field that forces all the energy to a lower end of the South Pole. The South Pole creates this sphere roughly 30 miles above the globe. This is an invisible sphere. And it begins to amass all the sentient dream world of everybody on this planet. For the first time in probably 26,000 years that we've dreamed as a unified culture, not separated by day or light. That energy starts in the innocence of the inner child, all those children on this planet that still have will and still have soul and have not been broken down by the spiritual contracts and the screwed up incarnation rules of the archon grids here. So that hope, that energy, that joy on the 21st was correlated into that sphere, and all the adults that were still able to think into a child's mind and enjoy this world brought energy to that. And the first ever spark of dream time since we've been dominated and controlled in this methoded manner. That spark entered inner Earth. It entered hollow Earth and began to spread to our dreamtime brothers and sisters who are on a different dimension existing in Earth. And they began to dream in dream time with us in the third layer. So we have a third dimension of dream time and a fifth dimension world. And that fifth dimension world sent out a spark up the North Pole to communicate with its surface people. Think of it like a spark trying to get a fire lit and the wood is wet. It barely lit, it's smoking and smoldering, and it's been smoldering now for the last 3 months, coming to this day of balance where finally where there's smoke, there's a bit of fire. And for each day we move away from the day of complete balance, the fire of Dreamtime will grow until we reach the peak in June 21st and 22nd, where those that are the dreamers, the first members of the understand the great galactic migration that's already coming towards us, the great consciousness of 3 separate galaxies that are watching the pay-per-view of Earth, are now understanding that the very feet below us, the very Earth at us, is vibrating with this migratory energy. Those that are nomads will begin to understand that their homing beacons will be turned on, and that will be done in dream time. As your dream time allies begin to coalesce and coordinate, you will find people that you never knew before will suddenly have dreams like you. A man you may drive next to every day going to work, you'll look at him and kind of have a deja vu about him, and he'll have one at you, and there'll be that unmistakable look. A nurse will walk into a bedroom at a hospital expecting to see a man with broken legs from a car accident the night before, and they'll find the man trying to tear off the cast because his legs are no longer broken because he dreamed himself into a healed state. That is what's going on with our consciousness at this point. It is stemming from our dream world. Our dream world is uniting our finite world.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's and I'm getting this from so many different perspectives that there is a co-creation process that's going on whereby people are seeing themselves, dreaming themselves, or otherwise themselves whole. It's like when I say whole, it's just spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Only the whole can be made whole. It's kind of it's a mystery, and it's a paradox. But you must step into the circle of wholeness with pure intention, as focused as intention, with love's retention, for conscious ascension into this fifth dimension of grace, basically, for complete wholly integrated, sense of, all the above.
There's something else There's something else I'm prompted to say.
Okay.
Inside our planet, there's a hollow Earth, and all the other planets of all the other galaxies has some form of hollow Earth. And when hollow Earth began to dream, those people that have been in our hollow Earth, particularly the cities of Telos and the Argothan networks, are also living, coexisting dimensionally on other planets like Alcyon and the Pleiades, Andromeda, the Lyrans. Our ascended masters here are many of their ascended masters there. And when we began to dream unified dream time, their worlds began to dream in union also. So those that all have soul relations to those that have reached the level of hollow Earth vibration also have soul relations to those of us on the surface. So it's a layer to see that the brothers and sisters of the star that are literally parked outside of our planet are connecting to our dream time too. And for them, it's an experience they haven't had in many thousands of years.
Amazing. When you talk about, and there's so many points of reference and words that I wish I had a little dictionary I could thumb through, and reference. I've heard them repeatedly, and I've gone into in depth with the understanding of some of them, and others not as well. But the concept of the ascended masters, the Galactic Ascended Masters, I've got that from multiple perspectives. I mean, that over the years, there's kind of repeating pattern, common sense. I've studied the mysteries, the modern day mysteries of the field, the quantum field, and conscious evolutions, ascended masters, teachings, etc. And the ascended masters thing, I just got to reference this because I actually have a longtime friend who's been beamed up multiple times, like Gordon, and been, had ET contact in a way, kind of a bizarre way. His story, I lived with him for several months when I was in the process of moving, and his story, and I mean, it's just one of the most amazing stories of how, basically, he was, in one time, then I had go into, shown his past lives and other things like this, but, there are a lot of experiences he had that are just amazing, being out there and learning in the universe. This guy's just a layman, but he's a brilliant layman. He's, heating and cooling systems and just works with his hands and keeps quiet to himself. So I think there's a lot of people like this. I know there are, but his story about the Ascended Masters, how one time he was up on he thought it was a Pleiadian starship. Of course, you're kind of in shock when you have an experience like this, so that you have kind of selective memory. But he was on that ship, and there was two pictures, and he says, "Who are these?" And he says, "Well, this is I'd never seen him before." And he says, "These are the Ascended Masters, Saint Germain and Jesus." And what's interesting to him, he didn't know that, but later, years later, he was in California and saw these stump pictures of the Ascended Master teachings, and he saw the exact same two pictures of Saint Germain and Jesus were Sindalar paintings. The Sindalar paintings that are quite famous of these two pictures. And of course, Jesus being the hierarch of the Piscean age and Saint Germain being the hierarch of the Aquarian age. So he sees these pictures. And he gets into the teachings, and that's how he found his way up into Montana, where, the thousands of people came from, worldwide to live out here, with the Elizabeth Clare Prophet. And that cycle that she went out here for about 10 years was one of the most amazing things, from people all over the world coming and doing New Age things, teachings, lectures, etc. And that's how basically he found, the Ascended Master teachings was through these two pictures by Sindalar that were the same pictures, on the bridge. I guess it was the bridge where he saw him, or wherever he got beamed up to. But, these two pictures of the Saint Germain, Jesus and Saint Germain, passing the torch from the Piscean to the Aquarian age. Now, you get experiences and perspectives like that. And I know this guy. I mean, one time this guy, when he was on the ship that time, there was a beautiful lady. He says they look kind of Venetian. They look like us, but they were very beautiful. He said they look, And she says one lady takes him back to his room and does this mind merge with him. And she says, "I'm going to share some information with you." And she starts this, sharing information. And started going faster and faster and faster. And this is electronics genius type stuff. Electronics, and this guy was into electronics. He went to a special electronics school. So he gets this download, and he goes back, afterwards, and he builds this an accelerator chair that has crystals and dodecahedrons and all kinds of energetics and geometries and crystals and I think he had gold. I think it was gold. Anyway. He was telling me about how he built this thing, got into it, and he no sooner fired it up than he got beamed up into a ship again. And they debriefed him on tectonic plate shifts that were coming for the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
This is a true story. I know this guy. He's a down-to-earth, very practical guy, but I just know him. I've known him for years now. Now he's about 10 years, and he's fixed my, my plumbing and the water systems and heating systems. The guy's just a very practical genius. But you know somebody like this, and he's not making it up. He doesn't talk to anyone else about it. I'm just one of those weird people here in the valley that he feels comfortable talking to. But I lived with him for a few months too.
It helps that you have a radio show for the last 6 years, and you can broach those subjects.
Yeah.
When I was asked to come and do the Galactic historian here, I was ready to let the young guys do the young guys' work here. I had already known what was going to go on. I didn't know how it was going to end. I wasn't paying attention to it. I already knew what I was here to do, and it's just to start the healing after the event. You guys are the warriors. When you guys are done fighting and you guys realize you graduated, you don't need to fight anymore, and you're all going to sign contracts with Earth, there will be no more war, and accept your galactic citizenship, which I already accepted a long time ago, my universal citizenship. You're going to get that opportunity to realize that many of you are ascended masters and got trapped here in this long evolved war where the prime creator created the war and brought it to this galaxy, and the other two galaxies were not ready for it. Oh no. And it's the creator's first mistake. Many of the ascended masters at the higher level, when you get an opportunity to speak to them, will reference the same thing. It was creator's great mistake. But at the same time,
this is prime creator for our galaxy, for our solar system,
for everything that's involved in this area. When three galaxies come to create two together,
that's right.
They create a prime creator that is a merging of all three sentients.
That's interesting. They can do their own kind of mind merge.
Right. They came in and they brought in war because it had been promoting war in its galaxy. It was the only one that it was in, and it came here. And the first thing it found was a seventh-dimensional galactic seed planet, and said, you know what? That's the best thing that I could possibly have. It's giving me the keys to the universe here. And that was the other beings of light at that point in time just weren't ready for the whole concept of war and had to rapidly prepare themselves and actually devolve many of their spirits and their underlings to become warriors. And that's where the separation began, and that's how the war galaxy got a number of ascended masters to join it, because it had much less ascended masters, because many of them were called hollow ascended masters. They could fight on a spiritual level, but they had very little understanding of how the universe worked.
So where the angels and the archangels and the Elohim come into it?
There are beings that started on a planet that was a light world, that wasn't a physical world. And some worlds that like that are gaseous worlds, or like Saturn. They manifested bodies when they needed warriors, because they never needed to manifest bodies before that. They could always have positive influence over 3 and 4D life forms when they went in there just by their vibratory light, as long as they were citizens of that solar system.
And Elohim, I understand, are more like of a group soul. They're more like one mind. It's not like a hive mind, but it's more like of a unison where they're separate but equal.
It's actually the next scale up. Most Elohim come from a soul group that has formed a star, and inside the star are several soul families and soul groups, and those soul groups put together a hive consciousness that creates Elohim entities that may relate to several dozen suns. So there's several thousand Elohim per area of sun groups. And their purpose there is to raise the elevation of vibration so that the community of spirits that are coming in and out of that area or that part of the galaxy can find the right environment for their life that they're planning in this part of the galaxy. So there are middlemen that show you where the open air market is so you can go and test the waters, and then when you're done testing the waters, they read you the warranty and explain you all the rules of what it is.
So it's, again, a soul agreement that you're, and just as we all came with our soul agreements, and there's a divine order of our individual and collective soul agreements according to cosmic law. Can you comment on that?
Yes, cosmic law extends all the way up the perspective, all the way down the perspective, and it's generally the same until you get to a point where one galaxy, and another galaxy come together and they set up a limited set of rules. And that's kind of what went on here. And the rules are where we make this galactic ascension solar system so that everybody comes in. Well, some of the first beings that were sent here were way overpowered, and one galaxy lost out, and it was a back and forth, and to the point where Earth was teleported. Its solar system was teleported 12 separate times, and it's gone from a seventh dimensional entity to a planet to a fourth, and in some situations a third dimensional planet, because so much of it had been psychically damaged by the venomous insects that were here, as well as the parasites that had been put onto the Earth soul, because they were trying to force another soul inside this planet to make it a war planet.
It's interesting when you go through all of this. It makes me think of what's going on. We're talking about, on the galactic level here, and of course our solar system, and the planetary level. It makes me think of what goes on within our own body. And when we talk about parasites, we're all living with microbial infestation. We just live with it. We've got trillions of fungus, bacteria, and viruses in our body, and our immune system keeps it in check. And there's this like war in heaven, you might say. The kingdom of heaven is within us. On a cellular level, there's all this galactic, organ systems and cellular, solar systems. And I mean, it's just like on the quantum level, the stuff that goes on in our own body goes on in our own. It's a miracle. It's just, it's really. And so when you talk about, the dynamics of what's going on in the human body with the 7 glands, energy centers, chakra centers, the 7 glands, regulating the immune system by secreting hormones into the, by synthesizing and secreting hormones that do homeostasis, checks and balances throughout the whole body. I mean, it's just so, it's like, we're a universe inside our body. You take all the atoms, there's a whole universe of, and the atoms and the cells, which are like galaxies, and the organ systems, which are like, super galaxies. So you know what I mean? I mean, it's just like, it's amazing when you think of the quantum field, the black hole, white hole at the center of an atom, and the white hole, black hole, WHOLE, at the center of a galaxy. And you think about, the field with that portal, that dimensional portal on all levels, from an atomic level, a cellular level, organ systems, and of course the auric field around the body is a torus field, and the heart is actually like, it's got its own torus field white fire core they refer to in the Ascended Master teachings, which is that white hole, black hole portal, again with the quantum field. And of course it's the strongest generator in the body of energy, like hundreds of times or thousands of times stronger than the brain fields. But it creates the field in the human aura, and it creates, this field. That is, and when I reference all in this, it's the field that you reference that's going on with consciousness, soul evolution, conscious evolution on the soul level that's going on throughout the universe, and a very unique relationship to Earth at this time with sentient beings that have incarnated into physical embodiments and all kinds of life forms. And in this Earth, at this really unique time, and the timeliness right now is something that I get out of. You're here at this time with this extraordinary knowledge that corroborates basically the mysteries of God in a very profound way regarding soul evolution, which I think the human consciousness is just getting to the point where they can really appreciate this whole concept of conscious evolution beyond each embodiment and what goes on in the larger scheme, the cosmic scheme of things. So, Andrew, I'm going to pass the torch here to Gordon. Gordon, are you still there? Did we lose Gordon?
Yeah, I'm still here. I had muted the microphone, and then I didn't know you were going to do that right then. So
okay. I was thinking it would be probably a good time. I didn't want to take more than about a half hour. I'd really, I'd like to pass the torch. As far as, and this is something I'd like to pass the torch to both of you if I could do this. And this is, Gordon, you'll be following this recording. I'm going to edit up portions of what we just talked about.
I know.
The show on Saturday, and you're going to be following that. And this, the segue, and what I would like to ask you, and ask both of you, because I really believe the two of you together, like left brain and right brain, there's a hole between the two of you that the synergy that comes out of the two of you together is far greater than the sum of the parts.
Thank you.
And I really believe that. And so I'd like to kind of finish more or less by, asking both of you for an understanding. And Gordon, we'll go into this more, on the show as you finish up the show on Saturday for Cosmic Love. And that is, there's a process that's going on with conscious evolution on the planet right now in a very accelerated way. And there's a lot of, one of the biggest blocks, opposition to this evolution revolution. It's not the good we would do. It's our fears of and failings that's really afraid, in a sense, afraid of the light and afraid of change from, same old, stuck in negativity, S-I-N, stuck in negativity, and transcending that there's a fear. The people's comfort zone tends to get stuck, stuck in negativity. We all tend to do that at times, more so than others, but the conscious evolution right now is kind of a point where there's a lot of records, ancient records from previous embodiments, as far as the soul goes, the thousands of embodiments, hundreds of embodiments, millions of embodiments, the eternal progression, it's forever. But each individual that's incarnated on Earth, each human on Earth has come from different soul incarnations in different spheres of influence, different soul groups, all over the universe, and there are groups, different groups, patterns of these different groups around the world, and some of them are scattered all over, and they're connecting through the internet at this time, at this amazing time on Earth right now. And so the question is, in this process, and it's not, again, the good we would do so often, but the old records with fears that are like PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, from cataclysmic times where many souls, not all souls, maybe a small percentage of soul, and that's a question, Bandhu, what percentage, and I'll pass the torch here in a second, but there's a lot of souls that have experienced cataclysm or died horribly in wars, just horribly in wars, and went out with a lot of pain and went out with a lot of anger and have a record of that trauma. And trauma, it's like PTSD, it gets anchored in the DNA, it gets anchored in the soul records. In the sense the soul is free of it or goes on, but there's residuals. It's like PTSD residuals. It's like full spectrum autism residuals. And so the Earth right now has a lot of autism, full spectrum autism. Different people are in different parts of the spectrum. Some people are full spectrum, but are dimwits. I mean, it's and there's a whole range. Higher, lower, left, right, forebrain, rear brain, people with different patterns of being on the planet. So the understanding of, or my concern has been what kind of karma I have made for even in this embodiment, as far as balancing karma. What's the best thing I can do to myself specifically. What specifically I could do, and I've thought a lot about this, to balance karma, for any fear that I might have created. And any PTSD I might have resonated with the wrong people, because there are different soul groups I've spoke to, in different times, and some it's appropriate and some it's not. And that concept of what's appropriate for which people when you're addressing very fearful subjects, That's how I'd like to pass the torch.
I understand your question, and to answer you in the same method as I identify species. That's part of the Galactic Historian. I've explored the 3 galaxies extensively. That's why I was selected to be a Galactic Historian a long time ago. Began planning based off the Galactic history. And you're one of those species that came from the Andromedan part of the galaxy. But you have to understand, you were what's called a lighthouse spirit. You had multiple soul groups that would sing information to you. And when you were asleep, your species would go into these dormant phases, where 3/4 of the species would be asleep, and the rest of the species that was awake would connect to the dream time, and they were the oracles of that area. So it really isn't about karma for you this lifetime. Though those rules apply to you physically now, but during your graduation process, it isn't about the karma of who you touch. It's really about how many you touch.
As a lighthouse.
Not as a lighthouse.
Huh. Well, I can't think of anything better to do, so I'm just more easier and faster is my motto.
Keep talking your heart truth, your cosmic love, and keep expanding your consciousness. Don't worry about what people think. For every word that you think isn't helping somebody, there are 10 words that are helping someone else.
Oh, that's good to know. Well, I guess I can't please everyone, but, you do the best you can with what you got, And, again, my motto is more easier and faster, more life and love, easier and faster. And, I sense things are accelerating, but that's kind of my MO.
Dream time. If everybody here wants dream time. Confront the autopilot when you wake up and talk to yourself before you rub your eyes. Stay in that dream time.
Well, I want to finish before just as a finishing point of humor. Those who did have had a chance while they were listening to open a window and go to the spring equinox shift report. At the very bottom, the cosmic humor I wanted to finish with this happy equinox special is the picture that's at the bottom. And I hope you find it as hilarious as I did. And happy equinox, everyone. All right, Gordon.
Well, Christopher, now your show on Saturday is going to be an hour, and you're already up like over 50 minutes, I believe. So
I'm going to edit out part of this today. I'll listen to different parts, and what I'm going to do is I'll introduce at the very beginning. I'll have an introduction, maybe 5 minutes. Then I'll have some audio clips, and then Gordon.
You could also archive. Archive it.
I don't mind you taking the whole show with an interview with Andrew because he's so damn interesting anyway.
He is. As a matter of fact, if I would archive the whole show if I knew how. I'll just send the file to Don and he'll put it up on the website, the Cosmic Love website.
Well, I'm recording it too. I've recorded it from the beginning, and I paused during the "We're not on the air" section, so I'm up to 50 minutes and a half. 50 minutes.
I gotta get set up to start doing that. My sons are tech geniuses, but they're busy in the corporate world making a lot of money while I'm struggling here in the wilderness.
I'll help you. It's not tough at all.
Oh, good. Well, I think I got the equipment to do it. But anyway, that's it.
I got a Skype on one side, a sound recorder on the other side, so it is pretty easy. And I feel there's the one thing I would add to what you were just recently saying is that there's nothing to be afraid of at all. This is really a great celebration, and I've always thought it's great to hear Andrew say that, but I've always thought that everyone that ever lived on Earth was being born here at this time to bring all the totality of all that we've achieved and all of our problems and everything and sort it all out so we can move on. And it's like we can all compare notes and we can find all the beautiful things that we are in our past, but we can bring to the forefront now and use. So it's like, what you were before, the best of it is still there with you now, and it isn't conscious to a lot of people yet. It can be. And so, if you look at Buddhist religion, they have the most frightening symbol of this is the keeper of the lower gate. And when you try and explore the world of your higher conscious, the first thing you have to deal with is your fears. And your fears that you would know stuff that you don't want to know. And in a sense, we have a veil over us. We've had a veil over us. And it's been very difficult for most people to pierce the veil and see the true eternal nature of your soul and your consciousness on these other dimensions. But I'm just saying there's nothing to be afraid of. This is the time for all of us to compare notes, settle all the accounts. And, everything's not all happy everywhere, but what you've got to do is you can only do what you can do. And for the rest of it, you've got to accept it and forgive it and love it. And when you do that, you help heal all the parts that you were responsible for. And you help create a note or a tone that helps other people heal themselves too. Because there will be a time, and I imagine that based on what Andrew said, it's at this graduation that there's going to be this time where you can go back and undo the pain that you've gone through, which was I guess that's the great mistake, isn't it, Andrew? That it was unnecessary, but yet we've had it.
The thing is once you undo your spiritual contracts and we manifest spiritual courts of equity here, that's what allows you to finish the graduation process, which is, how do I describe it, is we begin to write a history as a species that's transparent. And as that happens, right away there'll be people that graduate. Right away, their fireworks show goes off. They go to the moon, they get their education, they get their galactic passport, and they get to finish their migration, because many spirits got caught here in mid-migration.
Ah, that makes good sense. Yep. And so basically what we're looking at is a lot of people are waking up to the reboot process.
Yep. We got about 1 minute to, actually it's the 59. All right, Dave, why don't you cue us up some music, and we'll take a 5-minute break, and when we come back here, we'll have the other hour, and we can go over if we want to.
Oh, great, thanks.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
And welcome back. This is the second hour of A Psychic's Tale. We have Gordon Gianninoto and Chris Rudy. Hey, welcome back, guys.
Hey.
Did I get it right this time, Gordon?
Yes, you did. Yeah, you're ready to go to Italy, I think.
Yes, well, I'm Greek too, so I can do some of those.
I'd love to go to Greece. I've been in Italy.
They're rioting there now, so I'd rather go to somewhere else. So we got an open hour here. Gordon, why don't you said you had some questions. Why don't you give an intro of the type of questions you're going to ask, and I'll go ahead and give you my galactic response.
Yeah, well, I had yesterday I had discussed in this, we had a little pre-show discussion yesterday, and I mentioned these 3 different civilizations, and there are a lot of, undoubtedly each listener has their own thought of what's a mystery they'd like to have explained, from Bigfoot to you name it. And I always was intrigued by 2 of these, and then I think it was Christopher, or was it Andrew that put in a third of the Anasazi. But anyway, the first one is the mystery of the Picts. Now, the Picts are spelled P-I-C-T-S. They lived in Scotland. There were some real extreme Picts in the northeast corner of Scotland, farthest from England. They're first mentioned by the Roman Empire, just before Christ was born. And then there's a mystery as to whether they disappeared. Now, when you look it up to conventional sources, they say, well, there isn't any mystery. Some of them moved south into England, became Christians and merged in with the population, and all the people in Scotland, even if they don't know it, they're Picts. But there was a mystery that had always puzzled me, and I couldn't figure out what was involved with it. So I thought, well, this would be just a simple answer. And Andrew gave a very interesting and involved answer that shows some of the things that have been going on previously here on Earth. And that is, is there a mystery of the Picts disappearing? Some people say that one day they just went looking for them and there was nobody left. that they had disappeared completely. And so I thought, well, maybe Andrew's just going to say that this is something that, it isn't really true. Like people say, well, the Mayans were taken up on a spaceship and they left. That's another question. But then there's other people that say, well, they just, when their kings, failed and their society failed, they just merged back into the jungle and they're all still there. So anyway, my question to you is there a mystery about some of the Picts? Obviously not all of them, because it's clear that they did intermarry into England, but is there a mystery about a disappearance of them as a group that, like, all of a sudden one day they weren't there?
Yes. The Picts were a people, as you were saying, from Scotland. When the Romans began to invade up north, the veil of separation between the two worlds was very thin there, and the Picts were very powerful. They too were an alien species that came here during a refugee time of Earth, and that's how they got soul-bounded and contracted here. As the Roman Empire began to come in is when the higher entities that realized that the Picts themselves were way too powerful to have on this planet, they began to systematically attack them energetically and then began to trade them to other galactic entities that needed their DNA or their actual physical bodies, because they were a highly psychic species, to become systems of domination and control on another planetary system. They were literally wholesale traded off of all this planet.
Well, you see, this by itself raises a whole other issue, which is that, in a sense, it's creating a sense of doubt. In other words, if you become totally psychic and you're very advanced, then some other group that's not as spiritual as you are, but has more powers and abilities, is going to come and kidnap you and sell you off to slavery. And so, I mean, what kind of a hope is there when you here's this whole group that achieved something that obviously no one else had been able to do, and that attracted
others had achieved it, and every time they did achieve it, there was a wholesale extermination or selling of those people. It's repeated throughout history because the forces of domination and control had a very specific evolution pattern they were trying to keep. And since there were 2,000 separate bloodlines here, each peaking with different energies, it was impossible to line up their peaks.
So you're saying that you can get traded on the first draft, so to speak, if you basically if you have a strength in excess. A strength in excess is a weakness.
Yes, and then there's another layer. At that point in time, they were making those types of trades. There were other planets they were trying to duplicate as Earth, but these planets weren't true seventh dimensional planets. They were facsimiles, and poor ones at that. And the Picts themselves, about them, they revolted several thousand years ago because they exist in a different point of time and space because they've been evolved many times over. And some species are forced to go above that bar and then wholesale sold off. They rebelled and connected to a sacred feminine of another planet, and they're actually here now with the Andromedans and the Pleiadians on their biospheres, waiting to be reunited with their part of Earth, which is on the spine of Scotland's mountains, because those are sacred mountains. There's a very special root chakra to Earth in there, and that's why those species were so prized.
So they didn't come and take all the Picts. They took the ones that were the most advanced.
And breeding groups, because they were trying to breed even more of them. So they would take several thousand from a village at a time. They'd take a whole village, or they'd scan several dozen villages and determine the blood types and run a genetic calculus to determine what they would need to do to force evolve a new baby through domination and control, sexual abuse, war, or if they needed to bathe it in energy so that at a young age it's knowledge and energy and then abuse it for its purpose.
But now, if you reach a certain point and some selfish group comes in and tries to take you, what happens to the karma of the Picts themselves? What happens to their souls that they have to be sold off into slavery and move to a place they've never been before and do things they never imagined? What happens to them?
This is the school of hard knocks. You get your PhD here. When you signed up for that fact was very evident before you came here.
So in a sense, they knew the risk of achieving a certain amount of progress was going to be that they would be subject to a dark ages for them.
It was very clear, if you didn't plan your life good, high quality, you would miss out on the great wonders of Earth and get caught into the grind. This is again, you get your PhD here. You come here, you plan it for a very long time. There was so much war here, too many spirits literally got the kick in the ass and jump into the fire.
So I've always thought that good always wins out and that bad always loses. And I always say that if you get to a choice between service to others and service to self and you choose service to self, you have the whole universe behind you. So in a sense, just, there's an undertone of what you're saying, which is that if you reach a certain level, you're going to be punished for it, but you're not saying that.
It's the punishment at that level. You understand there's no polarity. When you leave third dimension, you understand on the fourth dimension, all is one.
At that level, all is one, right. And they can handle it.
It's more than just handle. You plan for the neutral perspective. And as you move into a fifth and sixth dimension, you can plan polarity into your evolution to allow spurts of high action or low action or interaction with other types of lower energies to allow them within your field. When you come here, that's what you're doing. You're trying to share with the soul groups that have decided to incarnate on this galactic ascension machine. And it's the best of the best from 3 galaxies here, and we're doing the best we can do to figure out how to make it work.
This happened 2,000 years ago, but they're back now, and they're doing fine.
Oh yeah, they're big, bright, and billions of them actually. They were a massive breeding group that was taken off, along with the Dogon tribe, the Aymara at the same time in South America,
Anasazi?
The Anasazi, the Aguni in Japan. Mongolians were war-bound and taken to Noktror, which was another war planet, and where the Mongolians literally became the trainers of war. And then they were returned here during the Genghis Khan times, and Khan himself was a contactee, as well as a multidimensional being that was of an 8th dimensional origin.
So a person listening to this, what you're saying is that in their original, when they came here, they had a contract that involved that. So actually, it isn't like just if somebody's innocently listening to this show thinking, oh my God, this could happen to me. It may or may not happen to you because it's in your contract.
Right.
How does this contracting manifest?
How did second grade manifest for you, or how did a driver's license manifest for you?
I mean, there's cosmic councils, like great karmic board, for example.
Isn't it just rules for here? Isn't that another way of putting it? It's rules for here.
Rules of engagement.
Yes, I'll describe it as I see it. Let's say I meet Gordon in the street, and when I meet him, there's a energetic, mathematical, geo-spiritual education, mathematic equation that goes on. And that determines his soul contracts and my soul contracts, and it distills down to a number, and that number is the way those contracts interact. And if there's a negative, meaning you're a type of spirit that has a totally different rule, and Gordon's another type of spirit with a totally different rule, the base Earth rules take over, and that is that karma of exchange. You must exchange somehow, even if it's a hello or a goodbye or a kick in the ass or you share.
So we all come to this with different sets of rules, but when we're here, we have a commonality that we use to interact with each other to our mutual benefit.
Which is Earth-based rules, incarnation rules, which is currently under the form of domination and control by the Archon's incarnation grid, which is a saddle on the actual original rules of Earth's 7-dimensional mind.
And that changed the seventh dimensional frame of reference that Earth was as an incubator planet, healing stopover planet, as I understand it. That changed, and we talked about that yesterday, and that was a question you had, wasn't it, Gordon? About how
I mean, that's where you were saying that this solar system was built based on the moon because of what's in the moon, and so everything else was placed here because of that, because that's like a graduation mechanism.
Yep, it's the Galactic Ascension machine. It is a device that when the explorers of the three galaxies met up, they happened in synchronistically timing, met up in the same place that they found this moon that's outside of our planet. When, the universe is providing us a galactic ascension machine, a galactic hotel, an interuniversal, intergalactic workout center, and open commodity trading zone that can teleport any life form to any spot in the universe, as well as graduate spirits. So let's form a planetary solar system around it, and let's get the best of the best. And they did.
Well, I would imagine that NASA didn't know about that, and that's why they sent of course I wasn't there, but I think the rumor is they sent a nuclear weapon to the moon on Apollo 13, and that's why it never made it there.
There was no nuclear weapon there. There's a base on the moon.
I mean that NASA had a nuclear weapon on Apollo 13 that they were either going to use on the moon or do something. And Apollo 13 was the one that had a big problem, and it never got to the moon. In fact, it came back to Earth.
I don't have any records of that, though there are nuclear weapons on the moon.
Well, does NASA aware that this is a graduation machine there, or is anybody in the government aware of it? Does that affect any behavior towards exploring the moon?
They may understand it on a basic military governmental level, but not as higher conscious individuals, because the government isn't acting as higher conscious individuals. It's actually under the force of domination and control, which is the Archon grid, which controls the creativity of that government, as well as the ability for that government's arms and legs and eyes to operate independently.
Well, in my opinion, then I think you're saying they don't understand it at all.
No, they're under domination control and mind control to not have the creativity to accept it, and stay under domination control and keep secrecy instead of transparency. That's right. What they're programmed to do.
Let's move along to the Anasazi, because Christopher had mentioned that, and it was just in passing a few minutes ago, but that's a really interesting subject as well, because they were able to achieve unbelievably great things through sound and physical movement and drums and chanting, and
their kivas were like little resonance chambers where they could set a harmonic and do Can you imagine that resonating with 12 people doing that together?
Yeah.
12 people.
Oh my God.
Imagine if it were 12 people that are master shamans, in each one with connection.
Yeah.
Chakra.
So now
those kivas, were an integral part of the Anasazi structure. There was 80 kivas in there? In that one main Anasazi, there was a lot of. There was hundreds of Anasazi structures all over that area.
Why don't you say, Andrew, what they achieved and how they achieved it, and then what happened to them?
All right. The Anasazi are a refugee species that came from the Andromeda galaxy, and that were here to help our species heal, because we had already been at war defending Earth from the attacks from the war galaxy. Earth had been lost 3 times at that point and gained back 3 times. So it had gone through 6 teleportations. There were 6 different spots. And it was at that phase where the dark forces have taken a massive loss, and they knew it would be a very long time before they would able to remanifest an actual attempt to retake the planet and teleport, grab control of the machine itself. So the Anasazi came here and began creating their kivas. Their kivas are linked to Earth's energetic grid as well as her soul. Those spirits that came here came via soul contract, and each person that came had thousands of other souls that were with them. Many of them have been many year lineage of shamans, and when they became shaman healers of Earth, bonded with the Hollow Earth people and shamans inside. And they created these healing chambers because they're looking for future spirits to come to Earth and be in contract at this point in time. And that's the purpose of the Anasazi here, was to be that sound vibration of the future to help create energetic dreamtime pathways so people can dream themselves into the Anasazi realm to determine if they wish to make spiritual soul contracts with the Anasazi. Before there was an Archon incarnation grid, which was a back door here into Earth as part of the war phase that was going on. But it was about healing Earth always at the end. As the Anasazi grew powerful, there were new invaders here. The Dark decided that they knew they couldn't technologically beat them, so they began a spiritual invasion. It came out of animals as well as souls that rapidly became psychically aggressive and were unable to control. The Anasazi would try to bring them into their healing chambers and expel what was called a demon. But it really wasn't a demon as much it was an entity that lived on Earth that was a bit a sixth-dimensional entity that was captured and taken into a dark world and tortured was separate to thousands of altars, and that each altar was a small percentage of the whole and then force incarnated back into Earth, and that would be a dark force fifth column. That fifth column began to fight on Earth, and then finally Earth was lost again, and that Anasazi realized they needed to go. Many of them left, but the ones that stayed here were soul-bounded in contract to stay here, and they were then consumed by the forces of darkness that took over the planet again.
And once again, you have a situation where people were really very advanced, and they were preyed upon by selfish entities from somewhere else who were not more spiritually advanced, but more powerful.
Oh no, they were spiritually advanced to create a spiritual invasion here that had no technology at all. It
was a spiritual invasion.
Oh,
yeah.
Here. Your skin is the technology. Your skin suit. That's what everything is about here. That you have to have the DNA to get here.
Interesting.
So did they just completely disappear, or were they moved wholesale? You suggest that some stayed behind.
No, they were turned into breeding groups that would make even more powerful spirits for the Dark. But ultimately, those souls that sacrificed themselves in the Anasazi recreated light beings in the future because they allowed themselves to go dark with a contract that said, once I have done an equal amount of darkness, I will return to light and peak at this point of Earth's defense.
Wow. That's very interesting.
What's the relationship karmically with the soul evolutions involved? The American Indians that were, so to speak, massacred. They had a soul contract. Was the story they had soul contracts to come in, and this was all part of divine destiny, or was it just stupid white men, or what's the story there?
I'll take you to the Trail of Tears. This is the tough subject for everyone. Those Indians that were here at that point were already fifth column spirits of the forces of light for many millions of years. Many millions. And they knew that they were going to go from a down-to-earth era to technological era. And they knew that the forces of dark needed that to finish their time of domination and control. And by taking that time of evil and pain and death, they were repaid karmically by the ability to go deep into the very edges of the universe and find those people, those souls that hadn't lived a life here on Earth but were very powerful, the founding creator spirits, the galactic historians, the great whale pods that have roamed the in-between voids between galaxies, and they use their dreamtime abilities and their ghost dance abilities before the white man came, because the mother councils and the grandmother turtle knew this was coming. And for thousands of generations, the local shamans among the local villages reached the very edges of the entire universe and began recalling the migration of spirits here. And that's when tens of trillions of worlds from multiple galaxies and multiple universes began migrating back to Earth to begin the healing process, to bring her once again to a seventh dimensional planet.
So I always say that no soul is ever lost. So you're saying that no soul is ever lost, and that in a sense isn't time an illusion, and that all the scenario, it's like a play, and we're all actors in it, but the end result is the same.
Yes, time is a social agreement, and it is a play, in that we are all projecting ourselves here from another place. It can be looked at that way, yes.
The ghost dance, you mentioned that. That's a big thing out here in Montana, North Dakota, because the Indians were, it just got them all excited, and there was really a phenomenon with ghost dancing out here, and then of course the settlers and the military put it down, really forcefully.
Well, there was a reason they were manifesting real change in the energy grid of the earth.
That's what they were doing. Sure. That's what ghost dance is. It's a resonance with the field.
Their feet dancing create ultra low frequencies, as well as the heartbeat of the drum connecting to the common heartbeat of Earth, creating a natural human scalar communication to Earth Hive in a co-effective dance ritual that is, supplied by the nature that's all greeted.
Amazing.
Now, this is really interesting. Now, I'd like to move along to another great mystery. It's I think a president was involved in trying to figure out what it was, and hundreds of other people, and yet it seems that what it is would be impossible for anyone, even today, to construct. So that is the mystery of Oak Island, Nova Scotia. Now, I live in the middle of the Maine coast, and it's always been very interesting to me. And evidently, at some point, a boy on the shore noticed that there were lights out on this island, and went out there and found that there was an oak tree over some turned over area, and it was thought that maybe some pirates had buried treasure. So people started digging, and they discovered an oak platform every 10 feet below this oak tree. So they kept digging, and they actually went down to, I believe, 180 feet, 18 of these oak platforms. And then they started drilling further and came up with a piece of gold chain, which in everyone's mind confirmed the fact that it was a treasure. But then later on, in other attempts, because the technology did not allow going any deeper than that, and the hole started flooding, they went even deeper, and it turned out that on opposite sides of the island, somebody had scraped away all the sand, put down gigantic jute mats, woven jute mats that were just immense in size. You can't even imagine how thick and how immense in size, how much area they took up. And what would happen is they put the sand back, the ocean water would come in and drain through the mats, and there was a stone channel from either side of the island that went down to the bottom, well, maybe not the bottom, but very deep on this pit, what's nicknamed the Money Pit. And at a certain point of digging, they broke through the bottom of these two channels, and the hole flooded with seawater. And that essentially, although there were other attempts at pumping it out, and then there was such a big mud hole that nobody knew where the exact hole was to continue, and it's just sat there over the years. So I thought, I'm going to ask Andrew whether this is the treasure of the Templars, if this was put there by the British Navy with gold that they stole from the Spanish, or what is it? But maybe pirates, but pirates don't seem organized enough to put in an oak platform every 10 feet for 180 feet. So I thought that's what it was, but Andrew really, this is eye-opening. So if you wouldn't mind discussing what you told us yesterday.
Yes, the spot that you're talking about there is an entrance to part of Hollow Earth that leads directly to Earth's heart chakra. It was tunneled energetically and astrally so that this is a energy vortex that leads through the 7 water chambers that is the reflection of Earth's previous lifetimes it has with other soul group planets or people. Before Earth was a planet, it was a person like us existing in different places. And those waters represent its memories and consciousness and allows you to get to Earth's heart. And there was a species that was trying to force incarnate Earth into be an evil spirit or to kill it. So they created this tunnel, and they put an object over it, which was going to be a giant crystal. And from another planet in another galaxy, a 7th dimensional negative entity was going to be shot across the galaxy and enter that crystal and kill Earth, and then take over Earth's body. That's what it was meant for, and it's been covered over many times so that you can't be used to that subject matter anymore.
Is the crystal still in there?
No, it's been destroyed.
And those pools of water, were they water from each of the 7 different incarnations of Earth?
Yes.
So, and then you would go down, a hole in the ground, because it seems to be a vertical hole. You go down there, then you'd go through these pools, and then
you have to exist. You go in one side of the pool, and as you come up, you're on the other side. And you're basically re-understanding how Earth ascended to a 7th dimensional planet. And only those that can get in there that have had previous lifetimes with Earth. But the hole that was created allowed this forced spirit in there to literally absorb those memories and take over Earth.
In other words, the water crystal, which is a tetrahedral structure, holds frequency. And the frequency that holds the records, like a carrier wave, the frequency holds the records of those previous incarnations.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, it sounds like a giant device. A giant device.
You had said, Andrew, that it was made of Earth materials, so that it would be like plugged right into the energy field of Earth, and it would be very hard to remove or detect.
Yeah, if you were there now, if anyone were trying to go and open it up and get in there, the Earth would literally fight back, because Earth has healed that wound. For a long time that was a bloody wound on Earth. And the spirits have been coming here to heal that. So it's healed over, it's scarred over, the crystal's been removed. The PTSD memory is still affected on Earth's mind because it's been used and abused a lot of times. And that crystal,
how long ago was this installed on Earth?
6 million years ago.
So at that time it was used, but since then it's been essentially the Earth itself and other entities have made it so that it can never be used again.
Right, it can never be used again now. The crystal was removed, as well as the control structure that would have been on the surface, because what they were doing was literally making a psychic slingshot on a planet. Imagine several million people under domination and control chanting a single concept, putting all of their life force and energy into another entity that's being stretched from the of a dominated sacred feminine of another planet and all its surface entities, and then shot into its sun, and then it comes into our planet, out of our sun, and basically hits the Earth at that crystal point at the speed of hyper-consciousness.
And that was 6 million years ago.
Yes.
And we're saying now that Earth is still a healing planet, an incubator.
Yes, it's returning to that.
It's returning to that. But that souls have been coming here for healing after PTSD from traumatic shocks in their soul memories from cataclysms, other things, that they're still here with PTSD from previous embodiments. Yes.
And that soul that was shot here, it actually was shot here. They shot it like 10 different times. That's how determined they were. So they sacrificed 10 different high-dimensional entities and the surface-dwelling entities that were empowering it from different planets to try to get here. In one instance, a Pleiadian planet ship jumped in and took the brunt of the psychic attack, and that's what created a dark Pleiadian group for a while. And that's actually what caused part of the galactic mafia we're dealing with now, which are 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensional bored, angry brats.
Wow, we're talking advanced Star Wars.
So you were saying yesterday that one let's say evil soul could incarnate as millions of people, and that was the situation in the Middle East, that all the rulers in the Middle East all want war and dissension, and they don't want anything resolved.
Right.
And
they're all one single multidimensional enemy that's using its off-world hive mind to control the people and their soul contracts that they come in here. And they've been able to use Earth's natural ability to bilocate its consciousness on other planets, because it lived, remember, Earth was a person itself, So it can still consciously coexist on other planets and allow like little micro avenues for energy to get in and out.
So you're saying that's the real... No, I'm sorry, Gordon. I'm sorry, you go ahead.
Well, that's okay. Chris, go ahead.
I was just wondering, so that you're saying this is the energy in the Middle East that we're seeing. Even though with the Arab Spring there was this uprising for freedom and liberty, but you're saying there's an energy there in the Middle East that is like a hive mind negative force that's working through different individuals. I understand that concept of how that works, that there's a connection that some have to the dark and some have to the light. But there is, how else can you explain, the ghetto situation, of the West Bank and what's going on there? That's like a living ghetto.
Yeah, or Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip is
Gaza Strip. Yeah. The Gaza Strip. That's what I meant to say. It's like a World War II,
right.
Warsaw ghetto kind of a thing. It's like, how do you explain that?
You hear the phrase Arab Spring, but I mean, spiritually, is there really an Arab Spring going on? Is everybody going to be able to throw off this domination and become?
I wrote about that in my equinox report today.
At some point, they will be able to, but the first thing you have to understand is the land underneath that area is a womb chakra for Earth. As I said before, Earth is a galactic nursery planet, so it has dozens and dozens of chakras that are wombs that it can birth new life force out. And one of the reasons they have wars and continuous domination control over that is that affects Earth on a psychic level, and it helps them control the incarnation grid. So it's key into controlling Earth's incarnation grid that they have war there. And they needed a multidimensional entity that would be firm and keep those kingships and families intact when the rest of the world went a different direction.
So they're almost like the elite figuring out which bunkers they're going to hide in during pole shift, because they're thinking, well, when worst comes to worst, at least we've got a firm grip on the Middle East, and nobody's going to dislodge us.
Yep, because we're holding the womb hostage and can damage the womb. And just yesterday they're talking the chemical weapons scare, because they want to bring more psychic attention from other parts of the world to empower that.
Into Syria. Yep. And I wrote about that in my equinox shift report today. The Syria, the not so secret war, and it's an article you can read on exactly that. All the talk about chemical weapons, it's the fear mongering. It's just the fear mongering. As far as the Arab Spring goes, what's going on globally, there's people all over the world that are linking up through the internet and just realizing what's been going on for the last 10 years, the decade of darkness. The 10th anniversary of the Iraq War invasion yesterday. The big lie of weapons of mass destruction that took the 9/11 psychotic break with reality to the next level of shock and awe insanity, which turned the civilized world against the U.S.'s preemptive war attacks on Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and now Syria, the not-so-secret war, morphing the Arab Spring into global contempt for bankrupt morality of corporatocracy. And the corporatocracy, the supreme coup, in the U.S. government, when basically the corporatocracy said, we're a person, we have more money, we're going to own, we have a right to be represented, and that's when they began, overtly owning and controlling elections and everything. Ever since the Supreme Court decision, I call it the Supreme Coup, in 2010.
Well, that's why I say, for what's wrong on the Earth, it's going to take a big broom, and a big broom would be something like Planet X, because if we don't have massive social change, that's one thing. I always say that we're on the edge of empire with Big Brother and all this monitoring and recording everything, and we're just like this close to having the dark forces win on every level, but yet if this really big broom comes along and just changes everything, then there's no more governments, there's no more religions, and people deal with each other.
That's one of two options. Of course, mankind has free will, anything is possible, and the other option is what I referenced in the spring equinox shift report. And that option is, what would happen And again, will this happen? Is it happening? Are UFOs uncloaking all over the world at an accelerated rate? I have a whole article on that. It's linked. The Galactic family is here. They appearing in crop circles. They've been appearing with these unveilings all over the world. It's blacked out in the U.S. media. But anyway, on the internet, it's happening all over the world, accelerated rate. And so what would happen? What would happen if on the 27th, as this lady says, this dictation from Mother, Father, God, which, I'd like to think it's true, but I'm just saying, what would happen if tens of thousands all over the planet, there was unveiling and they didn't do anything like crop circles, they just let us know, we're here. What would happen to the governments of the world? I mean, President Obama doesn't have to,
Andrew, do you think that could really happen? Because it seems to me that there's some sort of a rule that if you're a skeptic and you want to not believe any of this, you can at this level on the third dimension. You can continue as before. There will be nothing to shock you in that way.
Yes, there will be a time where the skeptics will allow to continue to be the skeptics. I'll talk about this time that we're in now, between now and the 27th. We have 7 days. Really what's going on is the higher dimensional entity mafia guys that are holding this planet hostage are in the final negotiation of the ones that have the tiniest bit of non-polarity left in them are going to accept the Prime Creator's message of get off the planet or you're going to be recycled to zero. So the hardcore guys that'll go down, will have to pry their cold dead hands power out of their cold dead hands is now being cut in half. Obama is in his soul contracted place. Netanyahu's in his soul contracted place. The people of Israel are not necessarily united, but as a people, they have a central religious concept that feeds the old religious icons of that era, which is re-energizing the psychic grid that was in that area originally intended for the people of that time, because they were the forces of dark understood that this point in time was coming. And what they were using was the land as a massive energetic battery so that whoever was soul contracted to be a Jew and go through all the negative things they have can draw upon the psychic battery at this time so that they could rise above the rest and claim the authority over Earth, which was to continue the Earth domination method after the event. They do not have the energy to do that because there are several dozen other factions on this planet that have wielded control, one which is in charge of CERN, another that's in charge here of America, another that's a private South American dominant entity, and the undersea reptilians who now are mostly gone, and the other factions that use Earth as a nomadic roost.
Interesting. So, in other words, the dynamic of the so to speak, clash of civilizations. Of course, this is the test that's best. Doesn't get any better than this. It's an opportunity. You can see the opportunity with all the problems, or the problems with all the opportunity. But it boils down to that this is the platform for evolution that we're on at this time, and it seems to be coming to a head to where we have free will. We can do anything, and those who basically are here as lighthouses. Where did you say I was from? Arcturus?
Yep. No, Pleiades.
Pleiades.
Off the beaten path of the Pleiades.
Off the beaten path. Anyway, I mean, to me, it's just like self-evident. Well, it is a function of resonance with the frequency, vibration, love and action, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. That in enough hearts of enough people worldwide, there are people that really have a contempt for this last dark age, and we're moving out of the dark age into an age of enlightenment. And we all know the dark age was followed by the Enlightenment, the Renaissance, the Reformation, and what we call the Industrial Age, and to the Space Age, and now to the instant everywhere interactive internet, computer internet age. And
but Andrew, you're saying that it's more than just a movement. There's actually been all these people that are trying to control so many aspects of life on Earth. Those people have been told this planet is going to another level and you will not be able to function here. So you have two choices. You can either burn up here or you can leave now. So they're leaving now.
Not exactly. There are some of them that have abused the rules so much they actually get to stay here.
They're stuck in negativities.
No. They're not stuck. They're making a conscious choice to evolve because actually they're trying to prove something that you can do a service to self, ascension to higher levels, and not do it the hollow way that they had been doing before.
I see. In other words, it's like their way of balancing karma. Yep.
But they decided to become and be the big negative guys for 1,000,000 years, but at the end you want to get paid. Be it antagonist, protagonist, and the big drama on the world stage.
So that group, they're not necessarily hoping to go to a higher level and be separate from everybody. They'd like to join the party, but and that's their payment is, well, we were the bad guys for 1,000,000 years. Now, we want to be able to join the party and be the good guys.
No, not necessarily either. They get free will after that. They can go and make another galactic ascension planet somewhere else. They've learned all knowledge. Here. Well, they chose to be here because of the galactic ascension machine that was put as the equation, and they all were part of the sum total of that equation when the three galaxies got together. What I'm trying to say is they can leave and be good guys or bad guys on a different place of existence and recreate Earth, though on a smaller scale. They just won't start a seventh dimensional planet, the galactic nursery. They'll start a fourth dimensional planet, and they'll probably
But that's because of their limited understanding.
Right. But they would have the opportunity to raise themselves into a seventh dimensional planet.
So in the eternal scheme of soul evolution, sometimes in the short term we do things for the long term that aren't self-evident to anyone else, but it's all part of the soul contract.
In this final click of the clock, yes, but not in other scenarios.
Yeah, this is real interesting when you say the final click of the clock, and this comes into where you come in, Gordon. The final click of the clock as far as the tribulations beginning, more so, you might say, in this window, and you talked about 2016 you referenced before in one of your other talks that I listened to, Andrew, that we're in a cycle from 2009 to 2016. We're right in the middle of it, the midpoint, 22nd through the 27th right now. And midpoint astrology is a big thing to me, and the reading of the record at this time, Andrew, is I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Can you give us some insight, more so, of what's going on with the Planet X through 2016?
All right, what's going on here is whoever has lived through the Earth disruptions before, their soul innately know when bullshit is happening. And since Planet X is under control now and not being allowed to go to its normal pattern, people are now going through this PTSD memory of it coming. And for those souls who stand up to say, I know what pole shift is and it's coming, you will coalesce the other soul groups that have experienced that same trauma 4, 2, 3, whatever number of times they lived here during that. And as the soul groups come together all over, you'll start to have people want to understand why we expected this. And as our government begins to break down and truth begins to come out, we as a people will unify in dream time as shamans. But until that happens, until we manifest our wet clay into a fired piece of clay, we as a people have to go through a process of psychic diarrhea where we have got to let go of this old traumas so that we can accept our graduation and then get our passports to go to the moon and to get off this rock for those that didn't want to be here. So it's a big healing at the end. Yeah, it's a big purging and healing at the end.
So when everyone harmonizes to the same note, which is the same dream time, then they can change the dream time, and there doesn't have to be a pole shift.
Correct. Well, the dream time is already there, and the other side is already there. There's a link for you now.
There isn't any chance that, let's say, the Bush family is going to declare martial law and stay in power in the United States for 1,000 years.
There may be people that experience that timeline because they're not ready to live at that level, and that's what the dream time allows. And the Bush family was soul contracted to do exactly that.
Of course, there's all these different tribes. There's there's all these kinds of soul networks, and but the collective consciousness, as a general rule, of all service to others people on the planet, there is a higher power that they pull from in service to others, and there is a critical mass that's arrived, and there's really just only a few of those service to others that are in the highest frequencies that can hold the balance for millions of individuals. I mean, literally hold the balance as far as in that resonance they have through their soul connection contracts, soul connection resonance, the soul groups. There's all these soul groups, all light bearers, all over the planet, local and global, all these different networks, social networks, community networks, indigenous peoples that are really kind of plugging into this. We've had it with the death and health crap. We have a choice, we have free will, and just saying enough is enough. Am I getting carried away again?
I got something to add. Hold on real quick. I want to put this in there. As I said, people will experience the other versions, but you have to also realize that you have a soul group. Let's say you go into that negative timeline for a little bit. You have a soul group that's going to dream into your world and pull you out. So you're only going to go in there long enough to get to the very end. They're going to give you an opportunity to graduate. It's like going to summer school. Okay? So you won't be there for long at a negative place.
No. Yeah. Well, again, I realize how there are cycles where people do get stuck in negativity, or at least being stuck in inertia, or they're not moving forward. And moving forward at this time, I think, for all the service to others, souls on the planet, there's a connecting of hearts to where it doesn't take that many of them in higher power to basically resonate with, the prime. The prime direction, the prime directive, which, do no harm. Come out of this insanity of war, creating terror, war, disease, death, and hell on the planet. Enough is enough.
Yep.
Well, I feel there's a lot of, that people came from all over the universe with every possible unresolved problem that has ever existed, and it's all going on here right now. And in terms of our everyday life and the news and the media, you have these issues of slavery, you have issues of sexism, you have issues of racism, and they're all at their heart, they're one group trying to control another group. And people are hopefully going to be giving up this desire to control other people and realize that it's a far bigger, nicer yard to play in if you go the way of not controlling anybody and everybody having freedom and all working together without anybody being in charge. So,
freedom and opportunity.
So are these things, these are some of the things that have been resolved, but instead of just being the world that we see in front of us and what we hear on the media, this is like a dimensional thing, and these unresolved problems are from all over the universe, and they all are trying to be worked out here, and this can be and will be. I mean, it's like it's slanted for success, right? It's like at this point, it can't fail.
Correct. It will not fail. But its time scale, remember, time's a social agreement, can be extended. Think of it like there's 7 seconds left in the football game and they still have 3 timeouts, or 17 seconds, or they're at the 20-yard line. It can be extended out. That's what
it's like the whole drama can be put on pause.
Right.
And right now it's accelerating so fast right now.
It's not accelerating.
Matriculation of the Pardon? What was that?
It's not accelerating right now. It actually reached a neutral point today.
Maybe it's just me.
Oh, it is you. You, but the overall energy has reached a neutral point here. And what's going on is the next 7 days now, it determines what soul contracts are going to get eliminated on the beings that are using domination and control. There's those beings that are being forced removed because they cannot accept any of the sacred neutral perspective. They're being replaced. Energy that's deleted here is then replaced by another sacred neutral perspective energy as a child or as another ascended master incarnate.
Right. And right now, the real wild card is there are so many ascended masters that are incarnated. You might say some of them are sleepers, and they're waking up. I mean, there's so many of them.
This is not something that I'll speak of often, but as it is right now in Israel, there's a mass level of walk-ins going on to the Gaza Strip people. Yep. These are people that they lived here just long enough. You're a kid, you know what? They had enough, and they talk to the Pleiadian planet ships off there and say, "Hey, send someone else to the skin suit. I'm done here." And they're sending in the shock troops now into these little bodies.
Yep. Those who will wake up others and start sparking, those are ready to spark.
Yep.
Is there something that Christopher and I should be saying that we're not saying that would help wake up people faster or cause them
Good question. Yeah.
to attune to the same note so we can all move to the same dream?
I will answer it this way. At this point in time, I'm speaking to the you guys. I'm speaking to a live audience, and I'm speaking to a archive audience that has three perspectives to it. That is the total potential of everyone that will listen to the show. So to answer your question, you've asked questions that have already opened minds. If you want to start another show that you do the exact same thing, there'll be another layer. And I simply ask that you guys go back and re-listen to my questions, because as you both noted before, I say things that could take several listens for you to understand. And yes, there are some things that you have missed, but as a galactic historian, I'm here to be a teacher, and as long as you ask the questions, I will provide the answers from my sacred mutual perspective.
Thank you.
You know what, Gordon? I think what I want to do is take this whole recording, which has just been amazing, some really amazing inside information. I want to listen to it a few times before the show on Saturday, and we'll have a half hour just to talk about it. I'm going to listen to times, and but we can talk about this. Andrew's happy birthday coming this Saturday. Everyone should know that Andrew is going to be celebrating his birthday. So not only do we have the sparking with the spring equinox today, with the sun entering Aries, tomorrow the Venus enters Aries. There's an amazing quintile astrology psychology coordinates on your birthday Saturday, and Andrew. So blessings to you in that regard. And Gordon, we can pick up. People can listen to that. I'll put this recording up on the Cosmic Club website. And we can just Gordon, we can just take it to the next level to our capabilities till we meet Andrew again. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, this has been very exciting. I hope that the listeners have found it to be really interesting, because it illustrates so many levels of what's going on, because you could get fooled into thinking it's just one thing, what you see in front of your face, but it's not at all. It's so deep, and it goes, and everything here is connected to everything else in the universe, and it all has meaning, and there is value and purpose to the choices that you make.
Amen.
Well, we've got a break. We've got a break scheduled here. You guys want to go over another half hour?
It's up to you.
I'm fine with it.
That'd be good.
All right, Dave. Why don't you cue up some music, and we'll take a 5.5 minute break, and when we come back, we'll ask some more questions and see what the universe says.
All right. Thanks.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
This is Dave from the Wolf's Den Studios saying welcome to Wolf Spirit Radio. Wolf Spirit Radio is totally listener supported by folks like you who choose to help us stay on the air and grow.
For overtime here on A Psychic's Tale, we have Gordon and Chris. Hey, Gordon, Chris, welcome back.
Oh, it's nice to be here.
Yes.
With the distinguished gentleman.
the Distinguished Gentlemen's Club, yes.
Yeah. Dave, Andrew, and Chris, thank you.
Yes, and thank you guys for coming.
I never thought of myself as distinguished. I always thought of myself as some kind of cosmic cowboy.
Well, you really kicked me off the dime, and if it weren't for that interview I did with you in 2010, then I'd probably just still be writing emails that some people think are interesting.
Well, when you spoke to, must be almost close to 5 million people here on this last Coast to Coast AM talk show, Gordon, here just a few weeks ago, and with all the replays, it must be up around 5 million now. But you have touched a lot of hearts with a grounded understanding, a sense of what's real and investigating what's real and reporting what's real. In terms that it's a real stretch for a lot of people, and we kind of left the show with this understanding of how many souls are really in need of healing of their pain and their PTSD from many embodiments of trauma regarding cataclysms when Nibiru Planet X came to this many times, hundreds of times, thousands of times before. And the eternal progression of the soul, all of us have experienced cataclysm. And there's a memory there, and there's a collective forgetting also. There's a collective amnesia regarding these traumas. And so you brought to the attention of everyone that it's back, and it's some kind of energetic challenge, test, judgment, could be cataclysmic, maybe not, or it could be cataclysmic and will be prepared. And there's numerous ways that we could be prepared. And one of the best ways I think we could be prepared if there was an appearance, an uncloaking, dematerialization, flyover of thousands of UFOs. I mean, they've been preparing us with the crop circles and preparing us with increasing appearances, unveilings, uncloakings, flyovers all over the world, not reported in the U.S. media. But anyone on the Internet can pick it up, and I just posted an article on that in my Equinox report. There's a link that goes in with a bunch of videos that goes into all the appearances around the world and the crop circles all around the world. And
I had two visions of pole shift, and one was in 1973, and what started it was war, precipitated earth changes. And at that time, I had no idea. I found out years later that Richard Nixon was actually planning a first strike on Russia and China. And of course, that would have started a really beautiful war. And but then in
Hanoi too, yeah.
Can I add the Nixon era?
Yeah.
There was
the bomb Hanoi too, yeah.
Actually, there was more that was going on there. It was they had discovered an active Stargate off of the coast of Philadelphia in that area, and that was the only active Stargate that you could use to bring up the Galactic DNA trade again, because it had been shut down by the quarantine. And Nixon is the one that okayed that process of trading human beings for technology.
Really?
And the wars itself was about increasing the amount of souls that were going through this time. So a lot of souls got killed off, and the new ones that came in went through this new Archon's incarnation grid, which filtered out the good souls and put in the souls that weren't ready for, School of Hard Knocks.
Kind of like General Patton said when he said, "Kill them all and let God sort them out."
Yep.
Well, I never liked Nixon anyway, so he'd always say, let me make one thing perfectly clear, and then touch his nose, which is a sign that you're lying.
Yeah, he was really caught between a rock and a hard spot, and what we get from the media, the history we get from the media, and the complexity of the man and the situation, he was a player on the stage, and it was it's very complex. All the different.
You see, when people are telling the truth and they face each other, there should be nothing in the way of a full exchange of energy. So when you're really operating at a high level and being honest and truthful, you face the other person, you look at them in their eye, you don't have crossed arms, you don't have crossed legs, you don't block your face in any way, and when you're saying, well, let me be perfectly clear, and then you touch your nose, you're blocking. And what that is your soul won't let you lie. So your consciousness can try and lie, but there's always a tell, there's always a sign that something's not right with what's being said. And
well, no, so he was lying. He was definitely lying, and the politicians since then have been lying, but they just learned, like Bill Clinton, he was highly trained how to look right into the camera and lie through his teeth. And they've all been trained
that's
since
what
then.
I'm saying is they've all learned this since then. You don't see that happen again.
I got something to add. I got something to add to that.
Yes.
When you're describing people that are lying directly in front of a camera, there's another layer there. There's a hive sentience that exists inside the actual walls of our government, and that is the system of domination and control. And when something needs to lie in front of its people, that system of domination and control puts its tendrils into that person and manipulates its soul contract so it has enough energy to function as that government mouthpiece of domination and control.
Yep. There's all kinds of levels.
That doesn't mean I can't be listening to that and be very uncomfortable and know that there's deceit going on here.
Yep, there's the discernment.
There's the next level here is they're actually passing over to some people the vibration of truth and falsities. And
so then in 1988, I had a waking vision of pole shift and the change, and the sky was filled with saucers from one end to the other, and that caused me to do some paintings where there's just saucers lined up filling the sky. And I realized, that we have probable realities because we have free will, and that in the years from my first dream, 1973, to my waking vision in 1988, that we had changed things.
Yeah, well, I'm a dreamer in that, in regard to, we can dream up whatever we frickin' want to.
Right.
And it's true. I mean, we can co-create. We can, for our free will, there are ways that we can, with pure intention, focus attention, individual and collective, with the type of frequency retention that really involves individual and collective evolutionary ascension into a dimension. And this is, there's a progression here. Say the fifth dimension, which is integration. I really believe that by the grace of divine intervention, by the grace of the Holy Spirit, amazing things can happen. And I think personally, it's the will of God, love, source, prime creator. I believe it's the will that basically, when I say get our act together, that those who get it, give it. Love is for giving. But, to me, it's like, common sense is uncommon, but it's a paradox. It's like, it's the greatest mysteries are veiled in this paradox. We see that, understand the light because of the darkness. If it wasn't for the density of this, we wouldn't appreciate the light. But we're right at that point where we're waking up to, this process that is accelerating, and with more light, and more people are getting it, and love is for giving, pay it forward, pay attention because attention pays, and then, pay attention, and then there's a networking, for the net worth of this new net reality of unity, co-creation, unity conscience, unity in our diversity, common sense. It's all saying the same thing. We're all, getting it, and to a certain extent, there's times that, all of us are hot, and all of us, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we all get stuck in negativity. Sometimes, or stuck in just, when I say sin is stuck in negativity, we all just everyone gets stuck sometimes, and so everyone gets clear at times, but there's more people getting clear and passing the torch. As light houses, light workers, light weavers, light bearers, more light, easier and faster. I'm amazed at how fast it's happening, how many things are going on locally, all over the United States. There's different groups, different regions, different areas, and all over the world. Facebook, I'm just amazed at the brilliance coming out, in Facebook posts and stuff, linking up on Facebook. To me, it's like a way of connecting with people that are into the same type of interests all over the world who've really got a lot to say.
Oh, it's added to my life and my wife Janet's life so immensely that you can't even imagine it, to be able to be in touch with people around the world and people who are like don't know how to use Skype, which is what we're using for this broadcast. Don't be afraid of it, because you can really be in touch with people around the world, and there are like-minded people, and you can find them. If you think you can't, you probably won't, but you can. I'm telling you, you can. And there's a lot of people that commercially would never have made it, their voice would never be heard, but because of the internet and Facebook and Skype and emails, everyone with any opinion at all can express themselves, and it's really been exciting. I mean, I don't know how much more exciting it can get, but I'm sure it can.
And it's not so much aptitude as...
I will say it can get a lot more sphincter tightening exciting, like going over the top of a roller coaster.
Or skiing downhill at full speed where you're just barely holding your balance.
Yep.
And out here in Montana, that's a metaphor a lot of people relate to. That kind of thrill of, whoa.
As an old-time limo driver and truck driver, I would refer to it as when you suck a spring through your butt because you had an opportunity where you need to slam on the brakes.
Yeah, and out here it's slammed on the brakes on black ice going 50 miles an hour.
Yep. Get those exciting moments.
Janet and I went out at midnight to look for UFOs or call them in. This was probably about 20 years ago. And we hit a patch of black ice, and it was a choice. Do we go in the ocean on the left, or do we hit the cliff straight ahead? So I figured, well, it's midnight. It'd be a lot better to hit the cliff, so.
Oh, geez. Yeah, choices like that, kind of, make for a good life reading in just 3 seconds.
Yeah, there was like a 3-foot border of rocks about the size of large watermelons that were all, because they were cracked, they were all sharp edged, and then the ocean and dark salt water. So it was like, I
think you said it, Gordon, when you said that, it's whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. It's an attitude thing. It's more than aptitude, because I always say it's not aptitude, but attitude determines your altitude. Whether you soar with the eagles on wings of grace or scratch with the turkeys. You like those
cute phrases, don't you?
Or scratch with the turkeys with bugs of begrudge.
You like those cute phrases. You have evolved cute phrases all over your studio.
Well, let there be mirth on earth, I think joy flame is half of the ascension process,
Right.
It's just,
that's another point that I think is really important to understand, that one of the elements of the creator for this universe was humor, because without that you couldn't stand anything. You couldn't,
I've got something.
Makes everything possible to resolve.
Oh yeah, please do, Andrew.
I want to add something about humor. About 6 years ago, right about when the end of the Syrian Grey War was going on, I got these series of communications to go and work on the prisoner of war camps that were going on, because there are a lot of entities that could be saved that just need to be nurtured back into a way and have a technology that doesn't affect their karma, bleed off some of the negative energy that was around them. Well, shortly after that, I began to have these phases of just bursting out into laughter, and what it was, I was getting a download of laughter because of some of the things that I had done, because I was completely unexpected, because I was manifesting a galactic historian in the future, and the past me was starting to understand what it is I had done when I had made the first crystalline waterbed that began healing the prisoners of war. And I still get these phases where I look at these news and I see the news guys there, and I realize that they're just one part of a multidimensional entity that's being in domination, and I see the matrix for what it is, and I laugh and laugh. But just this morning I went through this probably 15-minute phase of just laughing my head off at some of the stuff that's going on in the news.
Well, it's really essential for life because you can't possibly move forward if you aren't happy. I mean, you've got to be happy with who you are, where you live, who you're with, what you're doing. And when you're that happy, then you've found the way to move forward, because you need that emotional certainty, not the mental certainty, but the emotional feeling that things are going to be okay, that they are. And then you can see the contrast between what people say and what's really happening, and often that by itself is extremely humorous.
Yeah, the more real you get, the more unreal the world gets. Unreal, it's like the more real you get, and it's like the cosmic humor in it is, the joke is on us.
Well, it's our joke.
Yeah, I mean it is, and so it's. We co-create the humor, the joke, of light and darkness. In other words, this is the test that's best. It doesn't get any better than this, and it's an opportunity with all the problems rather than, a problem with any opportunity.
Yeah, like Jack Nicholson saying, "Is this all that?" What did he say? Is this all there is?
Is this all there is?
But there's another Jack Nicholson movie where he's been having affairs and he goes with his wife. She's Oriental, and they go to a psychologist, and she makes some comment about he's not plugged in.
Yeah. I don't remember what movie that was.
To all the listeners, I say, plug yourself in and laugh and move on. It is going to be okay, and you have to believe that it's okay. You have to feel that deep in your heart, and that's the faith that comes from you, because you have that creator energy in you, and it's for you to express, and to express it happily.
And that's the fearless faith of the creator energies, of creator, of source. The fearless faith that it's all in divine order, it's all in process, it's just happening. It's the justice that just is. It just is. The neutral aspect of it is, pleasure, pain, loss, gain, fame, and shame are all the same when you're there. Neutral. It's just happening, and that by God's grace and God's time, more light, life, and love, easier and faster, just happens. It's like a prayer field of expectation and anticipation that co-creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is to say, we get what we ask for, whether we know it or like it or not. In the eternal scheme of things, and in each moment is a function of the eternal scheme of things.
You could probably write a big Bible of catchy things to say. You could just.
I'll encourage him.
Because you could,
I'll do it, Andrew, if you do a Bible, a glossary of your terms, so that we can all, go really deep into the whole you're talking about through each of the holographic segments of the terms that you use, and which ties into the whole. So it's like a holographic perspective on galactic history.
No matter what problem you have, you just take Christopher's book and you open it up to the page, and that will be the appropriate thing, like justice just is.
The I Ching.
The Tao of Chris. I got something to add. For those people that are listening in that are agents, there's a galactic historian and two wonderful people here that are creative and pros, and you can come shop us for a book that will sell more than millions.
Oh, I'm sure of that.
I'm
absolutely sure of that. Because, people are hungry for this, because, everything they've worked for their whole lives, it's sinking in like a cold feeling, like, wow, everything I've worked for my whole life has come to naught. What is important? And so there's this hunger that's just sweeping the world. And it's the question, what is important? And people want to know.
Waking up to what? Waking up to what? What are we waking up to? Well, what is this conscious evolution thing going? Where is it going? I mean, how do we get there more easier and faster? How do we become conscious of how we're individually and collectively conscious? What frames of reference geometrize, the order of the universe between our ears, like the operating system for the holodeck? The coordinates for framing concepts, and from the left brain to the right and vice versa. We think in images and symbols of associative feelings, and whether you're coming through the feelings or coming through the pattern recognition, the strength of the left brain. In either case, strength in excess is a weakness, but the point of balance, where, there's congruence, mental congruence with heart coherence, where that frequency of holy compassion is strong enough to override, all the insanity of disconnect between the left and right brain, or all the strengths and excesses are balanced with heart coherence. It's just a frequency of holy compassion. Am I getting carried away again?
You're riding the waves of love.
Oh,
well, that's true. I mean, when you get down to your heart center, you're at the basic level that unites all the other parts of you, and it's not as complex as it seems. I mean, in fact, most people are overthinking the most inconsequential things when the big thing is also the simplest thing.
Yep.
A really simple thing that references that and just practical, down to earth, grounded, this is the real world kind of a point of reference is Dan Winter's, a new software he's got. It's an iPod application. You can download it for $18 that shows when you're in the frequency of heart coherence, and if the person you're talking with has downloaded that application, you can both see when you're in heart coherence, the frequency of the golden ratio algorithm of the heart rhythm that's referenced through a breath biofeedback, breath rhythms of the voice, and the coherence, the heart coherence, as far as the frequency of compassion, like a resonance with, the golden ratio algorithm, harmonics of source, of the field, of the quantum field. That is a phenomenal thing that's happening. And there are networks of people around the world that are downloading, using that app on their smartphones, and they know when they're both in heart coherence, they have conversations like this.
Yep.
Or,
like this.
Well, Andrew was telling me that I should look into a tuning fork at 432 megahertz, which is the frequency of love. So I went to this website that I'm sure a lot of listeners would be love to find, and it's called natures-energies.com. And it has got, of course, tuning forks on lots of frequencies, but it also has, like Christopher was just saying, it's got a computer program which is so reasonably priced it's hard to believe, and it will display, your harmonic content and break down sounds and your words into waves and chart them where you can see what you're doing, and it's an eye opener. And one thing they have a section on this website that talks about how music was supposed to be all the key of A was supposed to be 432, but it was argued and put through that A would be 440 cycles per second, not 432. And what that's done, and this is this website talking about it, what that's done is made it so people can't find that heart rhythm, and they aren't calm, and they aren't rested, and and it allows this music, this modern music that's off. It's just off a little bit, but it's just off enough that it's actually disconcerting to people who hear it. And it instead of bringing things together and harmonizing them, it actually creates a dissension and a discord that's so subtle that people can't even sense it. But when you hear the difference between the key of A at 432 and 440, there's a world of difference between those two frequencies.
Yep, there is. All right, guys, we're nearing the end of the show. Let's each person do final thoughts, and then we're going to go and we're going to leave ourselves with some music after the final thoughts, and it's going to be. Hold on a second here. The heroes are hard to find, so everybody with your last thought, and then we'll go into the music.
If I got 30 seconds here, I'd reference that. Yes, there's a full spectrum dominance agenda of the dark side. And there is a full spectrum ascension platform for evolution that is utilized by and aligned with by, you might say, the light side. So there's full spectrum autism, and there's full spectrum conscience, and there are two ways to approach that. There's the ways that from the outer world that if you tune into all the medium, the centralized mass programming media that carries frequencies that are off, that carry hypnotic and misqualified energies, or you can tune in, of course, to the harmony of the spheres, the quantum field, and just anyone can go there in source meditation. But these frequencies of ascension, evolutionary ascension, are going mainstream. And
we're running short on time here, Chris. Why don't we let Jordan finish up?
Okay, Gordon.
Okay, well, I thank you for the opportunity for being on. I think this has been quite an interesting show. I think there's a lot in there for people to listen to, probably over and over again. And thank you, and I look forward to being with you two again.
Well,
Thanks, Gordon.
I want to thank both Gordon and Chris and David Wolf Spirit for coming on and being part of this little soul contract that's being fulfilled here. And yes, it was a soul contract to do this show. I just want to say I dreamed both of you guys 6 years ago, and there's more to this dream to explore. So Dave, why don't you take it away and give us the music, It's Hard to Find Heroes.